Crusader Kings 3 is packed with a ton of things to do, from the start of your game all the way to the conclusion. If you're new, a veteran, or just coming back, it can sometimes be a little difficult to keep things straight. In this video today, I'm going to give you a checklist of things you should be doing at the start of every campaign to ensure you're off to a solid start. You can find the entire list in the timeline and the description below, so feel free to jump forward to any part of the video that interests you the most. And I'll be doing all this before we even unpause the game, and that's a crucial step, as sometimes the AI will snatch up possible suitors or get alliances before you can declare wars, just whatever it is. If you end up enjoying the video, please don't forget to like, comment, and or subscribe. This all vastly helps me in dealing with the hardest things in succession, the YouTube algorithm. As a side note, if you're looking forward to Victoria 3 from Paradox, I'll be covering that game extensively, with tons of guides and Let's Plays. You can pre-order it through my Nexus Store to support the channel if you'd like as well. Nexus gets a key directly from the developer, and then they give me a cut of every sale, significantly helping to keep the channel alive. But let's get started here on our campaign checklist for Crusader Kings 3. Loading into the game, we've gone with Robert Guiscard, or Robert of Apulia. And Italy is probably one of my favorite starting locations, and I apologize for any kind of weird noises I make because I'm suffering from some terrible allergies right now. But the first thing that we're going to be doing here is choosing our lifestyle and or any legacy traits. And that'll usually be denoted at the top right here, but you can click this button right here to open up your lifestyle. Now, you're going to have 5 things to choose from, diplomacy, martial, stewardship, intrigue, or learning. And more often than not, your character will have some form of education trait that will kind of skew them one way of the 5. Now, this is always going to be dealer's choice, whatever you want for your character. If I was playing this campaign, I would definitely go with something martial related, because I think this is probably one of the best campaigns to take advantage of a really good early martial lifestyle. And then I'd go into strategy focus. Now, it is worth noting too, kind of, this plays into the very last thing on our list here, but kind of have an idea for what you're going to be doing with this character as far as, hey, you know what? I see where we are, and I want to make sure that we are really going into heavy martial because we're going to be doing a lot of martial expansion. Or, hey, you know what? I'm planning on doing a reformation of our faith down the line, so I'm going to want to get this faith creation and reformation costs reduced by 50%, or whatever it is that makes you want to really focus into certain things. Like maybe you want to do something like get specific titles, or maybe you want to work on cultural things. So just make sure that you're kind of focusing on the stuff that makes sense for the short and long-term goals that you have in mind for your campaign. Next up is your council. Now, this is going to be tricky depending upon whether or not you are tribal, clan, or feudal, and also depending upon your religion. Take, for example, here we're playing as Christianity, as Catholicism, so I cannot remove this bishop. If I were, say, playing as any of the pagan faiths, you more than often than not can just simply remove this character. Now, a big thing that people ask me is, how do you deal with these situations? You can just simply murder them. It's probably the easiest way to deal with it. And to do that, you'd want to have someone supporting your schemes, and you'd want to murder, and you'd want to have someone with a high spy master. You want to have a spy master with a high amount of intrigue. That's probably the easiest way or most direct way to get rid of them. There are other ways that you can do it, but that's just the biggest and most direct way to do it. Now, one thing you do want to make sure with your bishop is that they are endorsing you, because the endorsement, again, depending upon which religion you're playing as, this grants you levies and taxes as they take a certain portion from their temple holdings and give it to you. And in Catholicism, this bishop takes from all the temple holdings. So just kind of keep those things in mind. You want to make sure that they are endorsing you. And then, depending upon where you are in your campaign, you're going to want this bishop to fabricate a claim on a county for you if you'd like. Now, keep in mind, fabricating a claim isn't always about expanding your realm. It can be often about cleaning up your realm. So if I click on, let's go look at duchy titles. Okay, so here is the Duchy of Calabria. And I'm going to go back to E, and I see that, okay, there's this one guy holds just this location. And then this one character, Roger of Messenia, holds these 2 locations. So if I wanted to kind of clean this up a little bit, you would use your bishop to fabricate a claim on a location that you wanted to remove the title of a specific character. Because if you have a claim to that land that you're removing the title from, it is not considered tyranny, and it can just kind of usually push through. There's some resistance, sometimes not. The bishop can also convert faith, so if you are trying to kind of make sure that everyone is of a specific religion, you'd want to make sure you do that with your bishop here. So we would convert the faith of orthodoxy right there. And then also just simply religious relations. Now, playing as a Catholic character, that's actually quite good because it helps out with dealing with your with the Pope. Now, moving into the Chancellor, and it is worth noting here, since we actually can change the Chancellor, we would be clicking this button, and then we'd be organizing this by diplomacy. And man, look at this guy, Count Joffrey of Lys. He's the bee's knees. We would assign him instead. Now, keep in mind too, though. Cancel that. Keep in mind. Well, Count Abelard is a powerful vassal, so that might kind of come back to bite you in the ass. Just kind of keep these things in mind on who's on your council. I'm not going to lie to you, I don't stress about this as much. If I can make it happen, I make it happen. If I can't, you know what? I'm going to go with the better counselor, because ultimately they're going to give me better benefits, and I'll usually be able to offset this. So for example here, the Chancellor has the ability to do domestic affairs. So I could simply switch this guy to domestic affairs and then put in Count Joffrey here, Count Jeffrey, and this would pretty much mitigate, not all, definitely not all, but a good amount of the negative penalty for being not on a council as a powerful vassal. Sidebar, he'll be pissed off because I'm firing him, so that's neither here nor there. But also, you know, you want to choose either domestic or foreign affairs if you're trying to get any specific marriages across, any alliances, whatever it is, or keep any of your vassals happy. Now, moving into your steward, you're just definitely going to want to make sure that you're doing increased development in your county, and you always want to do this in your capital or the capital you have in mind. The other things can be useful, like if you're trying to say do a cultural hybridization. Promoting cultural acceptance is a good idea. Promoting a culture would be to just completely swap that culture, and then collecting taxes can be helpful, but I just think that getting development, especially if you're feudal, is absolutely crucial because it helps you on so many levels. And I've covered a lot of this in the nitty-gritty in the whole slew of guides that I've got linked at the end of the video, so feel free to just jump over to those if you have a specific one. You're like, hey, why is he talking so much about development? I've covered it in many a guide. Now, moving into our marshal here, again, you know, you can press this button, find, oh, well, that's actually a pretty damn good marshal, so he's staying there. So organized army is good here, right? Garrison levy size and reinforcement rates all increase, but just kind of keep them on trained commanders, especially if they're at war, because it allows you to get really good knights, and it makes them so they can become blade masters, just better martial, better prowess, whatever it is. I kind of swap between these two pretty exclusively, staying on organized army when I'm at peacetime for a little bit until things kind of settle with my men-at-arms before jumping over to trained commanders. And then for my spy, I'm usually always in disrupt schemes, or I'm trying to find secrets on, say, maybe the papacy over here, or maybe over here with the Holy Roman Empire, and trying to go right into their throne room, depending on my character, if I'm going into steward and trying to get those hooks to sell them. But getting these counselors swapped around and taken care of right now is absolutely crucial for your gameplay. Next up is swaying a target, and this is a pretty quick little section, but say, take a look at Count Abelard here. We removed him from the council. He's kind of pissed. He could be doing some bad things if he had a high intrigue or whatever his role was. So I would simply want to do a sway on this target. Now, depending on what character you are, what religion, all those things, you could do a sway on the Pope here so that you could actually ask for gold, seek indulgences, and things like that. Swaying a target for a future expansion is also very good. If you say, hey, you know what, I'm about to have that guy as a vassal. Let's just say Salerno here. I'm about to get him as a vassal in a war. I should sway him now to at least try to offset that a little bit. Or maybe you look over at Croatia here and you want to really marry into this crown and try and get into the what's it called? become a claimant, basically, the line of succession, that's it. Then you'd want to sway them so that you can maybe help increase your chances of a marriage proposal going through, right? So swaying a target cannot just simply be swaying your own vassals. It can be a strategic sway to ensure that your expansions in the future are in mind, or getting any kind of big marriages, or basically shoring up any kind of future possible faction issues you might have to deal with as a result of expanding. Another quick one is about your cultural bonuses, and I guess innovation kind of plays into this. We would click this little button right down here, a little candle, and that would bring up our culture, which is the Norman culture, of course. Now, from here, you'd get a really good idea of what's going on, right? We are a bellicose ethos in our traditions and pillars, and this gives us certain things like prowess, men-at-arms maintenance cost, and men-at-arms recruitment cost reductions and maintenance reduction, as well as levy size increases. So kind of keep these things in mind. This is something that's just kind of nice to do, especially if this is a first playthrough of, in general, like the first time you've ever played the game, or a first playthrough of a new culture. See what kind of traditions they've got here, right? Like stand and fight. Okay, well, this makes it so my spearman maintenance is increased. Same thing with my heavy infantry and my heavy cav. But this one over here, rulers with poor education traits such as indulgence, wastrel, or naive appeaser are distrusted. So just kind of keeping these in mind, because they're going to change things. Tyranny loss minus 75%. Everything on this list could mean absolutely nothing, but the tyranny loss minus 75% is huge, because it means that anytime I incur tyranny by reducing a title, whatever it is, be it 5 tyranny or 25 tyranny, it typically goes away at point something per year. Well, now it goes away way less per year and takes a lot longer to lose tyranny. So you just have to keep these things in mind. Chance de geste here is going to help you out with poet traits. It helps your martial education. So like I said, just kind of look at these things. Also take a look at your innovations as it's linked to your culture. And make sure you have the innovations in mind that you want to work on. Right now, okay, we're currently exposed to chronicle writing. We're not the cultural head, so we can't change this right now. But it's just kind of worth noting, like, okay, we're going to be getting chronicle writing, and you want to become the cultural head, so you can work on things like mangonels or hereditary rule, which will allow you to enact partition law, which is huge because Confederate partition sucks. So just look at these things because they are important. And as kind of a point to it, and this is something we'll get into a little bit later, I suppose, look at any cultures around you that you might want to hybridize and get kind of the traditions of both cultures going for you. So just look at those things, really have a good mind for them. Next up is military. So we're going to go ahead and press F3, or just press the cross swords right there. Now, before, when the game first came out, you didn't start with any men-at-arms. Now you kind of have a baseline men-at-arms depending upon your faction, where you are, all these things. And with the Normans, we get pikemen, light horsemen, and armored footmen. So what I really want you to do here is not just simply look at the men-at-arms and go, oh, okay, these guys seem to be good, I'm off to the races. No, I want you to look at them, hover over, look at the terrain effects. Okay, they're good in mountains, desert mountains, and hills. These guys, they don't have any terrain effect, which is great. Light horsemen, well, they're great in dry lands and plains, but they're terrible in pretty much everywhere else. And keep those things in mind, because if you are expanding, you're going to be facing negative penalties when you use these. Damage minus 5, damage minus 10, pursuit minus 20. And the big thing with light horsemen is their pursuit. Pursuit enables you to remove the amount of enemy casualties left after a fight so they do not come back to fight you again. That's kind of like at least the easiest way to explain that. So you would pretty much press this button, that little plus sign, then press terrain or Control E. And then this gives me an idea of what's around. Okay, well, I got plains here, got a lot of plains. Well, I'm going to be a lot of hills here. Well, these are the lands I'm going to be expanding into. What's around here? Farmlands, hills, plains, mountains, hills, plains, plains. So what's all this over here? All dry lands, and then some desert. So you just kind of want to have these things in mind because your men-at-arms are going to be influenced by them. And you also want to take a look at, what those kind of wars are going to look like, right? Like, okay, if this is the one of the guys I want to fight, well, he's got these guys, which are basically heavy infantry. Well, I want something that's going to counter heavy infantry. Let's go ahead. I think it's light footmen, right? Yeah, light footmen counter heavy infantry. So create more men-at-arms that make sense for the wars you want to fight, but also most importantly, make sure you have the best possible siege engines you can make. Onagers being the worst, and trebuchets being the best. I don't think anyone starts with trebuchet technology. Maybe the Byzantines do in 1066. I can't remember, but mangonels is probably where you're going to be hanging out if you can't get onagers, or I'm sorry, if you already have onagers. So just make sure you manage those things. They are crucial. We're going to talk about knights in just a little bit, but that's a really big one that I wanted to point out. And by just a little bit, I meant next. We're talking about knights right now. So I have a mod called Knight Manager, and this mod simply allows me to uncheck these little boxes, and it removes anyone with court positions from my knight pool, or any of my lovers, or average fighters, or my heir. But I'm not going to talk about that because maybe you're watching this from the console and you don't have access to the Knight Manager, so ignore that for now. I just wanted to point it out for those that do see it and they are playing on PC and want to take advantage of this. Manage your knights now, because you're going to get into some fights and you're going to regret that you didn't do this, and you're going to lose an heir, a really good counselor, whatever it is. So I would scrub through this list and go, okay, let's see. You know what, my spy master, let's assume my spy master is good. my steward, I know he's good. He's only got 9 prowess. He's just really not worth risking. I'm going to forbid him from becoming a knight. And let's see here. You know, this guy's only got 2 prowess, and he is a good chancellor. I'm going to forbid him from becoming a knight. You know what? This guy got great prowess. Well, good. Seemingly good. I'm going to force him to become a knight. So just go through this list. Make sure you're removing any player heirs, anything like that you don't want to go into a fight and possibly die, and just get them off the list. And pretty much, I'd say anyone under, like, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 prowess, I wouldn't even have them on the list unless I really needed to fill out my knights. You see, I mean, we've got 11 out of 12 knights, and we have really good knight effectiveness, so I would want to have really good knights in here. And that, of course, comes into the decision of inviting knights, which is crucial. Now, inviting knights or champions, depending upon if you're playing Catholic or depending on where you are on the map. The knight is a different name for forever, right? It's Ferris if you're over in Persia. It's going to cost you if you're feudal. Usually fuel is really expensive for your knights. And the nice thing is we'll get 3 able-bodied men with 12 or more prowess will arrive as guests at court within the coming months. If you're tribal, they'll cost near nothing. The higher your prestige, the less they even cost too, which is even better. So send that herald out, get those knights, manage those knights, and make sure you don't have anyone going to war that you do not want to die in combat. Next up is marrying your primary character, the one you're playing right now, for traits. Now, a lot of characters start married, and that's fine. You can see right here, here's my wife. Nothing to write home about, no crazy skills, no congenital traits, no negative congenital traits, which is nice. Some minor claims, nothing crazy. Now, you can simply right-click on them and request a divorce. Now, of course, there are going to be a lot of things that are going to hamper you from this, depending upon your religion and what have you in your playthrough. So look at those hurdles and deal with them. So example here, the Pope has a pretty low opinion of me and a better opinion of my wife. And my wife has virtuous traits. So that's going to be hard to do. Basically, swaying the Pope, paying the Pope off would allow me to remarry. But with Duke Robert, you don't really need to remarry. You got 7 kids and you're fine as it is. You're already 51. It's going to be hard enough with succession as it is. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to quickly switch characters to show how I would quickly do this. You're going to go ahead and press Find Spouse, assuming you don't have one or you've gotten a divorce. And we're going to press a little magnifying glass here for filters. And then I'm going to change fertility to fertile. Adult to adult. And trait to inheritable. Now, depending upon your age, at 31, you could probably organize this by age and just go from the bottom. You kind of want someone who is at least, I would say no more than 3 or 4 years older than you. And I would go through this list and just quickly choose someone that kind of fits the bill here, right? I'm 31, so let's go with like, anyone cool in this list? Here, Adelaide here. And you know, it's worth actually kind of, I should have done this. Age. So what I would look at, where's young Adelaide? Further, there we go. I would look at her traits real quick first. Okay, gregarious, forgiving, and trusting. This is great because if I want her to teach any of my kids, because she's got quick, and quick is what we're focusing on because it's an intelligence trait. Look at all those bonuses. Remember, there's 3 levels of every single congenital trait, quick being the bottom, genius being the top, but still, it quick spurs you down the line into genius in due time. Now, from here, you would just go ahead and do the marriage. But I also kind of look at their stats. Like, okay, she's really going to be able to help me out with diplomacy, any kind of decisions like that. Not really so much with intrigue, but just enough with stewardship. I like to kind of try and find a wife with really good stewardship or really good learning, because really good learning is going to enable them to be really great at educating my children if I need be, and good stewardship allows them to increase my stewardship so that I can have more holdings using the wife assist button in the counselor section. So make sure you're kind of going through those and deciding which characters fit you the best. And also, you know, maybe you don't want to go with inheritable traits, but with your primary character, it's the best, because if you've got no children, this is the best way to have a good continuation to your campaign. Which brings me to my next point. Let's marry off those little kids. Now, look at this photograph. I have tons of kids. I got 7 kids here. The kind of general rule of thumb that I approach for children is daughters, unless they have a really good congenital trait, I marry them for alliance power. So I would go ahead and, well, she's disinherited, so let's just go ahead and press this character. I would organize this by alliance power, filters. That's actually, this guy's pretty sweet. We'll reset this to default for this portion of the video. I'll press alliance power, and I would just say, like, okay, let's look at my strength. I'm gonna go back on my character. This is my military strength, right? 1600. This will kind of increase a little bit once I unpause and things kind of settle a little bit. But I want to look around at alliance power, which is basically measured by the person's military power compared to yours. So Richard of Normandy, who is about to go take England, has a ton of soldiers, right? And if he's successful here, I now will have the Kingdom of England as an alliance. That's a really powerful boon. But just so much as that, I could go into the Duke of Bohemia, I could go into the Kingdom of Denmark. So I use my daughters for any kind of strong alliances, especially in the beginning, because if you don't do this before you unpause, the game will select some of these people for you. The AI will do these marriages quickly before you even get a chance in the first split second. So do this now, or you will rue the day. Now, let's assume that this character had really good congenital traits. Let's say she had genius. Well, then I would organize this by inheritable traits, and I would click matrilineal, meaning that they are going to marry into my household. And again, I would apply the same kind of rule, right? You know, someone that's not that much older than me. This can be a really handy button right here, which is an age difference button. So this is, oh, okay, who's 5 years older or younger than me in variance? Okay, well, here's my options. But assuming this character was 32, I would choose this character. They would matrilineally marry into my household, meaning they would come and join my court, and any children born would be of House Hauteville. So this would bolster eventually my renown, because then I could land that character, make that character a duke, a king, well, not an emperor, and then make them independent, and it would make my renown increase. So keeping good congenital traits is crucial. Now with my player heir, I would, good lord, he's a hunchback. I would not even care about my alliance power. If I got alliance power, that'd be great. But I would solely be looking at inheritable traits. It's the only thing I care about, because I want my heir to have possibly genius. You know, that's like the best one right here. Here's intelligent. I don't think I see any genius on this list. And you can conversely just type it in right here. Boom. Oh, there's no geniuses. So I would want to find for my heir, for my player heir, the character that's going to be taking over for me. Again, I can just click this button right here to get right to that character, find spouse. And I would organize it by age. Okay, I'm 5, she's 7, still a little bit older than me, but that's okay. And I would just make this happen. Of course, if I was doing this campaign, I would restore inheritance onto this character, because he's got robust and he's a little beast. Beaumont de Hauteville, I think, is the same one that goes on to go to Jerusalem in the First Crusades. So, cool character in history. So those are your big things to do. Marrying off your children, taking care of those traits and daughters for alliances is absolutely crucial to your gameplay. Next up is getting a court physician. Now, we're going to go ahead and just press F5 or go to your Courtiers, and you'll see court positions up here, and you'll see court physician is the first one, and you're going to click this. Okay, no one is good on this list. What I would then do is press search for physician right here, because it costs me no money to search. And sometimes the game will generate a good physician for you. The caveat here is that you have to unpause to see the results. That can kind of be not so great. So what I would do instead, press C, or if you're on console, go to find character. And I would go to all, and inside my diplomatic range, adult, and then I would type in stuff like novice physician. Organize this by intelligence and find myself a physician. Intelligence helps because you can also make them a number of other things like your court tutor. Like Nikolaus here is a really good example. Unfortunately, he is pagan, so he probably won't accept my offer. But Katerina is the ripe age of 59. Maybe, if I right-click on her, press arrange marriage. Okay, well, I could, just for the sake of the video, I could marry her to my son. Now, I wouldn't do this in reality. I would do it to a random courtier to bring her to my court. And that's the big thing is I'm talking about is kind of marrying her off to the court. Now, I'm going to go off that in a little bit more in detail, but that's just a way that you can find really good physicians across the realm. But regardless, using that search for physician button, seeing what comes of it is really crucial. And filling this position is absolutely crucial. Even if it's poor, you just need someone here in the event that you go to war and you have to deal with something. They can get novice physicians if they the novice physician trait if they don't have it. And that'll further increase their aptitude as a physician. And that will then go up from novice to physician to renowned physician. So if they don't have it, it doesn't mean they're not going to get it. Just it's pretty much their time in the position will eventually generate it for them. Next up is marrying your courtiers for councilors and knights. And we talked about this just a little bit in the physician sections, but let's go into a little bit more detail. Let me quickly look at my council here. Okay, Spy Master is terrible. I'll need that for my discussion here. So we're going to go back to Courtiers by pressing F5, and our Courtiers in that little section, pressing your Courtiers at the top right here. And from here, we can see all of our Courtiers. And if you hover over, it tells you if they're unmarried or not. One way that a lot of people will do this rather than looking at this screen is by pressing C, or again, for those on console, going back to find character, and then going over into your filters. For the relation, you click it to court, and then for adult, you want it to be adult, and then for marital status, unmarried. So these are the individuals in my court that are unmarried that I could then use to lure people into my court. Usually the best way that, or the way that people apply this the most is to find knights. And to find knights, you would use females. I feel like I'm talking about frogs or something. To basically marry them off. So let's use Alborada here. Let's press find a spouse. And there's a difference here between arranged marriage and find a spouse. Arrange a marriage between two characters at your own court. Find spouse is across the world. Well, no, it's within your sphere of influence, basically. So let's see here. If I wanted to find a counselor to replace my spy master, we would organize this by intrigue. Okay, Bouchard here, he was going to be the one that replaces my spy master, and he's going to do the dirty deed. Click this, and you think you press send proposal, but alas, you do not. Because what you're doing is you are marrying her to Bouchard, and away she goes. In fact, you want to press matrilineal. This is what brings him to you. And on top of it, oh, well, he's got robust, but he's a terrible knight. So let's go ahead and press send. Well, I can't unpause, but if I press send proposal, it'll go through, and then he will come to your court, or you can right click and press invite to court. Those are the big things with that. Now, conversely, if we wanted to find knights specifically, we would organize this by prowess. So Guillard here has, ooh, he's a good knight. So this is a free knight. We just go ahead and not only is this a free knight, it's a free knight with handsome, so he can do some pretty good quote-unquote breeding. Now, what a lot of people would do is probably choose this guy, because even though he's got 2 less prowess, he has got Herculean. And if I land this character, these 2 will make kids, and those kids more than likely will have Herculean or one of the other 2, because Herculean is the top tier of Hail, Robust, Herculean. So, Herculean? But basically, this is a way that you would make a breeding factory of knights. And he's got some pretty good traits. Humble, you make for a great vassal. So you would, again, arrange marriage. Oops, sorry. You would not do arranged marriage. You would press find spouse on her, click him, and then matrilineal. That is crucial. Press send proposal, and that would then go through. And you do the same thing here with Rosalind. Now, I could still probably find spouses for my really good knights too. So you don't necessarily need to do this to find knights to bring in. Maybe you have a really good badass knight and you want him to get better. Find him a spouse, find him someone with the congenital traits you want, and bring him in. A lot of the times you can use your knights to marry off and to find good spy masters, because spy master is one of those positions that can usually be held by both men and women depending upon your culture and everything like that. So I could use this to get Dragana here and have just a beast spy master, which is, again, a really great way to bring people into your court without having to mull your way through it. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of nitty-gritty mechanical stuff. Really what we're going to talk about now is analyzing your neighbors for alliances and war targets. And this is super up to you, dealer's choice type stuff, where I'm looking around, where's my next target? What am I going to do? What am I going to expand to? And this is looking at my territory and realizing, okay, let's take a look at some things here. Like I can go down to Salerno. But what is his military strength like? Okay, well, that kind of plays back into managing my men-at-arms. Okay, well, what about these 3? Well, these 3 locations I could probably get pretty quickly. They have pretty low military. Okay, good. I kind of have a good idea with this stuff here. But what's close to me that I could really want to ally with? Well, the Holy Roman Empire is touching my border. Maybe I want to grab an alliance with them. Or Croatia's right across the way and they've got a pretty sizable little army. Or maybe I want to jump into some love with the Byzantines. So just kind of look around the map. See what's around you. See what you can take advantage of, either alliance or war target wise, because those are going to determine the first couple quote unquote years or steps of your campaign. And it'll set you up for success a little bit more. If you're like, if you're over here playing as Ireland and you're kind of just like, okay, well, I'm right here. I'm Mouchard. I'm right here. What am I doing? And then you don't even realize that like England has just gotten out of control or Scotland's starting to come down this way. You just kind of want to know what's going on your map, because this helps you to frame your gameplay, which brings me into my next and final point. Establish a short-term and a long-term goal for your campaign. I mean, you have this huge map to take advantage of, so take advantage of it and set yourself up in the way that you want. So going back to our Apulia campaign here, right? We're over in this region and we have a good chunk of the titles needed for the kingdom. And you just kind of want to switch through these little overlays to find out, hey, well, you know what? I'm definitely not going to become the Byzantine Empire anytime soon. It's just too much of a long shot in my short-term goals. But I'm definitely able to become the King of Sicily. So let's click this, Kingdom, then click on the title, Kingdom of Sicily. Okay, well, we've got 9 of the de jure counties for this. Let's just get 500 gold and get 1 more duchy title. What's another duchy title we can get? Oh, well, Salerno, we already have 1 of the 2 here. All we need to do is go to war with this guy. Oh, crap. I now have my short-term goal. We're going to go take the Duchy of Salerno, and then shortly after that, I can make the Kingdom of Sicily. Or, hey, these are pagans. I can just easily do holy wars with these. Not pagans. I'm pagans by they're Islam. I'm Catholic, so it's like pagan in that eye, right? I could simply do a holy war for each one of these counties and just rip through all of Sicily and take it. Then I would have the de jure capital of Sicily, which is Palermo. Is Palermo? Yeah, it's Palermo, but it's not Palermo yet. It changes to Palermo once it becomes actually, I think once I become Italian, it becomes Palermo. I don't know if it's if it's religion-based or if it's cultural-based. Almost all locations will change based off of the religion and or culture that holds it. Like this is Zaragoza, but right now it's Saracusta. So it just depends on what you are. So just again, set yourself up with those short-term and those long-term goals. And this does then play into your dynasty legacy. Decide how you want your dynasty legacy to play out in your campaign. Do you want to be a character that goes down really heavily into warfare? Oh, we're going to go through this whole entire line, and that's just kind of the character I have in mind, or the dynasty legacy I have in mind. Or do you want to go really heavy into kin or erudition? There's all these different ways. I think most people go noble veins and convergent blood, and then the rest they just kind of go hog wild, just as a point of fact right there. And I think that from there, you're going to have a lot of fun. Once you set yourself up with a really quick goal in mind and you hit that goal, it's great. But just set yourself up with another goal after that. Okay, well, we've taken the Kingdom of Sicily, right? Let's go for Sardinia. It's not that far away. Let's do that. Or let's expand into old Carthage, right? And get the Grand Emirate of Africa. Or maybe we try to get Maghreb. Don't try that if you're new to the game, please. Or maybe we try for the Empire of Italia or the Kingdom of Italy. Like, just set yourself up with these little goals in mind, and you'll find yourself snowballing into a very fun campaign. I find that a lot of people that play Crusader Kings 3 get frustrated because they set themselves up with a micro goal of, okay, I'm gonna make a claim on Salerno, and then I'm gonna get Salerno, and what the fuck do I do after that? What the fuck you do after that is set up another bigger goal, something that's a little bit more encompassing that you can really give yourself direction and have a lot of fun with. So guys, that concludes our video here on a checklist. I know this is a little bit more of a checklist and kind of more of a guide, right? But I wanted to kind of guide you through this. It's very similar to my quick start video, which I've got a whole hour-long and a half some odd video where I go through each and every one of these steps. I explain all these things. Again, linked at the end of this video is my playlist to all of my guide videos. There's a lot of stuff to cover. And even though this video is coming out here in 2022, almost everything in those guides videos is still relevant today. Some things have had some minor changes here and there, so keep that in mind. By the way, I'm using the IR terrain mod if you're wondering why the water looks this cool and my terrain looks that great. IR terrain stands for Imperator Rome, which is another game from Paradox. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. I'm very excited to be jumping into Victoria 3 in the Victorian era, which is going to be way more logistics and market and government and econ and way less military expansion. But I think it'll still be really fun to go into, and I'm really excited to share that game with you guys. So if you do want to pre-order and support the channel, please use that link to my Nexus Store in the description below. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.